welcome back to Coaches at Crown Brew Getting Coffee. Welcome back to another episode. I'm excited for another great guest today. As always, we'll go through our thank yous to Crown Brew for letting us do this, for Ross and Abby and Swinford Media for being so great at putting this together and editing this and making it look as good as it does. And I want to thank our buddies at Adrenaline Fundraising. Jeff and Matt do an amazing job of helping coaches raise money. If you've got fundraiser needs, those are the guys to call and talk to. And we want to just say that I get the pleasure of interviewing some really great coaches every week from a myriad of sports and programs and boys and girls sports. And I got a great guest today, a guy that I'm super proud of for what he's achieved and what he's doing. It is head football coach at Benton High School, Mr. Justin Groves. Justin, welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said yes. I'm very humbled by people who are willing to sit and talk shop for about an hour.
Anytime I can talk shop with you, it's a good day.
That's awesome. All right, let's talk about it. So let's start off at the beginning like we always do and get some background on you. You grew up in Benton, so you're a local boy coaching in your hometown.
Yeah.
Tell me about life in Benton as a kid.
Well, we actually moved to Benton when I was fairly young, about third grade, and my dad was a coal miner growing up. We had property there in Benton. He grew up in Benton, so
Moved from where?
From Johnston. We moved from Johnston City, and I think I was went into third grade.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
I had a little bit of Johnston City background there. But we moved back to Benton and built a home there and stuff. And my dad worked in the mines for I don't know how many years, 25 years. My mom was in as a real estate agent and worked in the banks. Took care of the house for us. Yeah. My dad was a man of few words, but one thing I learned from my dad was I needed to probably get an education. And it's a story I tell if you want to kind of sum him up. He would come home from working midnight shift in the coal mines and get home about the time I'm pulling out to go to school, and he would intentionally come home straight from work. He wouldn't shower, he wouldn't clean up, he would look as you would expect, and he would just tell me, this is his man of few words, son, if you want to look like me every day, you can choose to do what I've done, or you can go get yourself an education. And that was something I kind of took with me through life, but I think I got some of his work ethic, so that's good. Mom, she was just as you would expect, very nurturing, took care of us. I had a sister, Sarah, who's actually, an adult now. It's hard to believe, she's a little bit younger than me, but if you ever need kitchen design or interior design, kitchen and bath work, she does that at Southside, and I think she's one of the best there is. So that's awesome. That was what growing up was like in Benton. Yeah.
Was there ever a point where the coal mines were in your future, or did your dad see that as declining and not an option? Because that's a very big legacy occupation. Like a lot of times the coal miners were the children of coal miners, but your dad didn't want that for you? Or?
I don't think he did.
Yeah.
It was something I think he learned the hard way. Obviously my dad, made a good living and took very good care of his family, but it wasn't an easy life. In fact, it was a short life because of that in a lot of ways. He passed in 2022 from cancer, and I think a lot of that was due to him starting to weld at 16 years old, and things were different then. You didn't take as good care of your body and things, and it was just a different time and different lifestyle. But he probably would have been shocked at how things turned out later on. Other than I wasn't doing exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you played. You grew up and you went to Benton High School. I know you played football. Did you play other things?
Through shot and disc and track. I wasn't great at it, but had fun. Friends were doing it. And the nice thing about Benton and having Coach Roper, Coach Simpson, and those guys around was we were a bigger, faster, stronger school, which now is something you still hear, but you don't have signs up on the walls.
It's like everybody was doing that.
Yeah, everybody.
At one time.
It was kind of the thing to do, and so I found a love for the weight room, and that was what I did in the wintertime. Obviously, I wasn't a basketball player, but that was to me a sport. It was something that was very competitive, and we spent a lot of time in the weight room and built a lot of camaraderie, and our chemistry as a team a lot of times was developed there. So I stayed very busy through high school. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You were a football player. What position did you play?
Center and defensive tackle.
Yeah.
I would argue I was a much better center than defensive tackle.
You played in a great era of Benton football. I mean, there were many years where, when Coach Roper took over and started that winning way there, I attended many Benton playoff games over the years and watched them play and compete, and I saw some great games at Benton, and so it was a cool time period, and you got to play in that. What was your best season? What's your best memory of playing it as a football player at Benton?
Well, not only did I get to play there, but I got to see it all flip over. So my first year, I don't believe we won a game as freshmen. We were in the South 7.
Okay.
And then Coach Roper was my sophomore coach.
Oh.
So at that time, we hadn't won very many games at the varsity level. I don't know, 1 or 2 a year, maybe they're in that little stretch. And a funny story about my dad, when Jeff applied for the job my junior year, which he did get the job, he sat me down and he said, if Jeff Roper's not your football coach next year, we're moving back to Johnston City, and we're going to let Mike Rude coach you. And I've told Mike that story. He's like, oh, well, that's neat. And, we mentioned some names of kids that I went to kindergarten, first and second grade with that he coached, and he's like, yeah, you would have fit right in with those guys,
Yeah.
So that was that close to going to Johnston City. But then my junior year, we went 6-3, and that didn't get you in.
Yeah.
And then my senior year, 7-2, we got in. That was the first time Benton ever went to the playoffs. And then we went to Robinson and won a game against the #1 team in the state with the head coach calling plays from the box, no huddle. That was
Terry Roach.
That was something that nobody had really experienced, and that's where our defense. That was the first time our defense ever became automated. So you could line up against a formation and have call. That was the first time Jeff and Doc had pulled that off. So it's amazing how the game has changed. I've got those VHS tapes now, actually, from Rope. I'm in the process of digitizing them all, and it takes a little time, but you have to sit and watch them. You can't go play by play, so I sit and, you can't, there's no shortcut. So I start the process and I watch, and I'm like, man. And then it's like, well, here comes, power right. Here comes 22 trap. Here's, it's like you can kind of feel like you're back in that mode of, hey, this is how we played, and it's really interesting to see how much the game's changed.
Yeah, that was a great era, and I think it's cool that you were a part of. It's special to be a part of a program's change, right? Because you were there when it wasn't, and you were there when it was. And for me, Coach Dunning was there for me at Carterville when we went 3-6 his junior year, and we flip it around the next year to 8-1, and. It's a cool thing to be a part of. A lot of pride in that,
They can't take it away from us.
No,
we were
you
always
still
the first
feel
team
that.
the first team to go. So.
Yeah, that's a great
and
story.
We're coming up, let's see, so I was reminded by Brad Wilson, who was a sophomore on that team. We are coming up on 30 years, which doesn't sound right. Is that right? 30 years ago. So this coming season, we're going to celebrate that team. So hopefully some of those guys can still get out and get on the field, and we'll show them off again. But,
there is a bond that you share with those guys. I mean, you tell your players that, and they're going through your program, that in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, these will still be the guys that are special to you, and you'll want to see again at class reunions and stuff. Yeah, it's really cool. It's sports has that. I know. From my sport, football, I think that's really special. I'm sure other sports claim for the same thing for them, but it is a bond I still have with my teammates, my classmates way back in Salem many, many years ago. So, you're done at Benton. You are headed now to college. You went to
Millikin.
Did you played?
Yeah, I played there a couple of yeyears, and then had an opportunity actually to come back home, and there was a brand new program starting at Wren Lake. Computer repair technician. That was something that hadn't been offered in Illinois that I know of in any school, maybe north. That, and I really felt a strong desire to get home and do some coaching. Had a few minor injuries I was dealing with, but there was an opportunity to come and help Coach Roper in '99, so I did that, and I actually ended up teaching at Wren Lake after I finished that program. So I got to see that, kind of flip over to the tradition that Coach Roper established, and then I got to coach with him for 9 years after that, and see that process through. So,
what was it like going from a player for him to a coach with him?
Not a lot different.
Yeah.
I can remember as a player one time, kicking it back to my dad a little bit. One time I came home and I was really unhappy. He had. I felt like I had maybe got my butt chewed on a little more than I deserved in one particular practice, and I don't know why, but you know how it is. As a kid, you go home and, man, he was really on me, and I'm mad and I'm upset, and not anything other than just being upset with probably myself, but turning that towards him.
Sure.
And my dad looked at me, and I don't know that enough parents maybe say this today, and my dad looked at me and says, "What'd you do?" And he didn't like the answer, and he says, I think you got it confused. it's not his job to make you happy. It's your job to make him happy. So you go and fix it. And, you know, it's things like that, you know, those may have translated over to coaching a little bit too. Expectations were high. And, you know, Jeff was extremely detail oriented. He spent countless hours in preparation. I mean, and if he would have had huddle and been a master of huddle, he could have saved a lot of those hours, because he did the same amount of film study and work that we would do now, but all on VHS tape with rewind, play, rewind.
Kind of the
play.
Alway style.
He'd almost memorize every single game.
Yeah.
I mean, he could tell you what plays they ran in what order. You know, on, say, a Thursday evening, we could tell what was going to happen that next night. And so, thankfully, I got a little bit of that from him, probably a lot of that from him. I think the guys on staff see it. I hope they appreciate it, because I put a lot of effort in to try to make their job as easy as I can.
Sure.
And you know, but I don't do it for me, and I really don't do it for them. I do it because someone did it for me, and I think someone deserves to do it. Some of the kids deserve to have someone do it for them. So.
I think that's a big part of the decision to go into coaching, is that I know at Salem the program was really bad, and a coach came in my senior year and flipped the program in a year, and it not only changed the team, it changed the school, it changed the community. All of a sudden the community was really proud and got a little swagger to it, and they went on a really good run. And I think part of me, I didn't even realize it, part of me wanted to replicate that at other places I could coach, and bring that pride and bring that community spirit. And so I see you doing the same thing, like, you know what it did for you and how your teammates, and now you want to replicate that. And the good news is you're doing that.
Well, thank you.
In 2009, you end up at Marion. So tell me about that.
Well, there was a federally funded program called Jobs for Illinois Graduates, which was one of the highlights of my teaching career, that period of time there. Not only was it a great job that's just a select group of kids, had a small number. You really got to build relationships with them and see them on in after high school. There's money there for post-graduation follow-up, where I'd get to go talk to them and check in on them and things and help them if they needed help. So that was really a good experience for me, and then one day it's gone. So the day that funding was gone, I was left with a few choices. One, find a means to an end and make something happen. Two, wait for at the time, a computer technician job to be available, which wasn't going to be till the following school year. And the way the contracts worked, I had to go a summer without any income, or find something to do. Or jump on the ship at Marion, and there was a job available there. And after some phone calls between myself and Steve Smith and me and you, it happened. So
it was a good year for us. I'm so glad to have you, man. I've told this story before. We went to some clinics together. We went to one in Nashville, Tennessee, and I remember we were walking down at Opryland Hotel. We were walking down. You're gonna think this is nuts. We were walking down to an Irish pub. And I remember I had Wimbo and you and Coach Skeet and Coach Dunning, and I said, I feel so safe right now. I felt like Tommy Shelby in Peaky Blinders. I'm like, we're going into this pub, and it's loud and it's fun. And I thought, I've never felt so safe in all my life. I had this huge coaching staff, you know, not only numbers, but also some big dudes. So it was great. But you guys were so great, and you really brought a lot to our program, and I was hoping you'd be there a long time, but it didn't work out.
Right.
And that happens. And then, so tell me about then at Marion, what happens next?
So post Marion, which, you know, there were some things there that, you know, were out of my control. And in my attempts to just stay busy and, you know, earn a good living. I mean, I had my technology background that I've always had.
Right.
And I actually went to work for a company in Carbondale, and I traveled Southern Illinois and had some clients that I was servicing with them. And then I actually made an attempt to purchase that business, and was going to go into business for myself. And that fell through for some different reasons. But I did gain some pretty good contacts, and I met some really interesting people, and I did get to spend a few days in the coal mine and doing some IT work on the surface, and you know, that led to some things down the road. But then right in the middle of all that, a very interesting thing happened. Dan Mings was hired at Johnston City in 2011, and at the time I was working for myself and doing some things, and you know how that coaching bug. Sure. And I'm sure it bites you every now and then. Sure. Maybe after a podcast or during one, or you know what I mean? Just hearing stories and things. And I reached out to Dan, and they were needing some help in the business department, and he was needing some coaches, and it was another another opportunity to go get on the sidelines. And man, you talk about a neat experience.
Yeah.
Coaching with Dan Mings, that was fun.
That's
And
great.
we had a real successful season. So
2012 to 2018 is a period you left the sideline and you went into the private sector for that period of time. And I know that, what was it like? Was that, I guess what I put on my notes was, you stepped away for an extended period of time. What were the challenges of that, and what were the positives of that? Was there anything about stepping away that made you think about the game differently or coaching differently?
a little bit. So the first reason to step away was my kids and my family, you know, to try to provide everything I could for them.
Sure.
Because, you know, the more and more years you spend coaching other kids, now you build this new family, but you do sense that maybe you're making some mistakes in other areas, right? So I saw an opportunity and was offered an amazing opportunity, and one that's still paying benefits today. You know, one that's going to set me up for a good retirement. I mean, a lot of really good things happen with that. But you know, so I went into a situation where there's only a few employees. They're planning on growing to being a big, you know, nationally competing coal mine, privately owned, and an amazing opportunity. And so I didn't look at football much. I mean, watch a few Benton games, and you know, for part of that, I believe Coach Claude was still there, and then Coach Pankey came in, who's, you know, a friend of mine, and saw some friends coaching and different new faces and things kind of getting, you know, it was definitely different, you know, through that period. But you know, ultimately, I saw an opportunity, and I thought I'd found my golden nugget. I thought I would retire as an upper level executive in the coal industry, is what I really thought might potentially happen. I was able to get my MBA while I was there, made some really good friends, made a lot of money, had some fun, learned a lot about an industry that I really knew nothing about before. And I would always make the joke, my dad would roll over right now if he knew I was underground, you know, installing fiber down, or, you know, getting a tour of, you know, the face, or going down to the long wall. I mean, things that, you know, he would have not recommended I do, but I was a little bit safer than I think he ever was. But it was different. I don't regret an ounce of doing it. And you know, as far as changing my perspective, you know, it's not like I went and learned how to coach different or anything like that, but I think maybe the break from it and to be able to look back and kind of reflect, because I mean, just in football, there's other sports, but just in football, to work with Jeff Roper, Doc Simpson, which is hard to believe that all those years, Jeff Roper and Doc Simpson coached the varsity football team. And I've got 7 assistants. You know, obviously systems are different, but that shows how much the game has changed. Taking all the good that he did, you know, learning all kinds of lessons from him, and just his work ethic and drive. You said, you know, it was only 1 year, but to be with you for 1 year and to take, you know, sometimes I picture what would Kerry say in this situation? Because you always have the right answer, you know, even if it's not, it sure sounds right. So, you know, I try to emulate that. And then to be with Dan Mings, you know, and Dan, he'd tell you if he was sitting here now, when things aren't going right, he comes in and blows it all up and says, fix it and put it back together, you know. And sometimes you put it right back together the same way it was. But just little things that I took from each coach, and I think that maybe gave me some time to digest that, grow up a little bit. And then, you know, the end story of that was a privately owned coal company that was doing very well through some political things that were going on and some other things out of their control, was forced to sell. And then went to a, you know, big international company. And the day I was packing up my desk to leave was the same day Bob Pankey turned in his resignation as the head football coach at Benton High School, and let everybody know that. So, I mean, it was kind of written on the wall, so to speak, you know. You know, when I stepped away from football, I did step away from helping Jeff for a few years in there, and that was when he had stepped away. It was a perfect time for me to take a break. I had 2 little ones at home, and, you know, those kind of things. And this one felt like it was the perfect time for me to get back into it. So
the reason I asked the question, because rarely do coaches have an opportunity to reflect. And you had a period of time where you got to do that. You weren't coaching anymore. So I've reflected more in the last 2 years than I ever did in the 33 years as head coach. You just don't have time. You coach. Then you celebrate Christmas because the season's over, and then you're right back at it. But I also worked through Christmas as far as my mind was still sharp from the season, putting together next year's offense. I did a lot of work right after the season because everything was fresh.
Right.
But I never reflected.
Yep.
I was telling somebody, I got a whole catalog in a cabinet full of highlight films I never looked at. I look at them now, because I've reflected a lot the last couple of years, and you had a chance to do that. So I was wondering how that could affect somebody, and I think maybe in some ways it stepped you away from the game maybe, but it also, I think, gave you a chance to think about some things maybe in a different way.
Until you said it that way, so this is just realizing this now. Probably the biggest change in that period of time was a major acceleration and a major shift in my faith.
Oh.
So it was during that time, things were good.
Yeah.
Financially, things were good at home, all that kind of stuff. But my faith in God and my involvement with church and with our youth group and those things were able to happen. It's hard to lead a youth group. I say I have the biggest youth group in Benton, 80-something boys in my program, and that's
Amen.
Sometimes look at it that way.
That's right.
But that was the time when I was able to expand on that and really, grow in my relationship with the Lord. And that, I think, definitely helped prepare me for what was to come, because without it, I don't know that I would have made it past the first year. Yeah.
That's great. That's a cool connection. And then, so you said Bob steps down. Yep. Bob's now a big wig in FCA, and praise the Lord, he does an amazing job. And I love what you said when you sent me your bio. You said it almost felt to me like it was meant to be. I'm locking up and leaving my office for the last time, and Bob Penke, steps down, and you called me. I was in the weight room at Marion High School. I got a phone call from you. You said, "Hey, I think I'm going to apply for the Benton job." I remember that.
Same day.
As clear as it was, at the same day, as clear as it could be. And I'm like, this is great,
And what's crazy, I hadn't thought quite through all the details till you phrased it like you did, but the Sunday before at church, with groups, there was a men's group I was part of called the Influencers. I've still got the keychain in my pocket, which I made when I worked in the coal mines.
That's cool.
From a brass tag that you would wear underground.
Yeah.
That group of men and some other people who prayed with me, and I just turned everything over to him. I said, because here I am, I'm leaving a situation that I thought was going to be the rest of my life, and I'm not 20 years old anymore, and I wasn't worried. I've always been told, you'll land on your feet, that kind of stuff. But that uncertain future was something that I had, and I said, I'm just going to turn over to you. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to sweat. I'm not going to, I'm not going to worry about what you have for me next. And then the day I'm packing I'm literally, I'm taking things out of my desk, and I get a text. Did you see this? And it's right there. Yeah. And so, no, but thank you. That's it was fortuitous, but it was also, I think, kind of in the stars, so to speak.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
You've been there 7 seasons.
7
as the head coach. You're 47-23, 4 conference titles, 5 playoff appearances. In the COVID spring, you played really. You were coach of the year for the COVID spring season.
Yes.
And you were also coach of the year that following fall in 21. So you were spring and fall coach of the year. You made the quarterfinals in 2021. You made the quarterfinals this year in 2024. So let's back up a little bit. It's a heck of a resume for your first 7 years. Let's talk about the COVID spring. We had a lot of fun navigating that, didn't we?
Oh my goodness. We had some phone calls too. And if I recall correctly, you had a feeling like you needed to be there to get that team through that.
Yeah, I had contemplated retiring at the end of the 19 season. And this my sports writer and our broadcaster, Tim Petrovich, and I had a lot of conversations, faith-based and football-based. And I decided to come back, and I wasn't sure why. And he told me, he said, let me know when you know. And then I planned on coaching in the fall of 2020, and COVID hit, and everything was chaos. As you know, we didn't know if we were going to have a season, ended up not having a season. Surprised we even played in the spring, but we did. But I called Tim and I said, I think I know why I came back. It was to navigate. I wouldn't want to leave a first-year head coach navigating through the COVID. Being able to stay on was, I think, a good thing. And by the way, I'm glad I did, because the next 2 seasons were really good for me. Next 3 seasons, actually. But yeah, so I remember calling you and calling everyone saying, what are you doing? How are you managing this? We all shared about how are you doing workouts? You know,
and some people there were some people that they backed away from it. I don't think they had a lot of confidence to go in and, you know, try to navigate all the rules and still get some kind of a practice in and do all this. And there were a few, I don't know that everyone did, but I mean, there were also some people here in our region that just, I mean, our thing was now. Once that started, our slogan for that season, which was short, became now, no opportunity wasted. So if we could practice for 2 hours and do, you know, no contact, or there was a day I remember we had stations set up and they had distance, and we'd run around and we'd
only 10
do
in a
lifts
group
and work and and footwork, and it's all kind of a blur now. So to frame it for me, we go 1-8 my first year. We go in the regular season 8-1 my second year. Win a playoff game, and I've got all these kids coming back.
Yeah.
And if you're on staff, you would probably make the argument that team was potentially the best team we've had in those 7 years.
Yeah.
We did lose at Nashville. It was our homecoming game. We got on a bus after the parade and went to Nashville and played.
Yeah.
It was a crazy set of circumstances, but that team was really, really good and really, really special. And, you know, not just the seniors we lost, but the juniors and the younger kids. It was just a really neat chemistry. And they worked so hard during that COVID season when they could have potentially not, you know, because there was a lot of room to kind of wiggle and do some things. But getting together on their own, and, you know, Keegan Glover was our quarterback. He was a junior, and he's rallying the troops, and they're running our stuff, and they're just fine-tuning things. And when we got on the field, you know, short of the Nashville game, I mean, we did anything we wanted, and, you know, it was a fun season. It was a lot of really no pressure, you know, other than you wanted to go out and perform well. And we were able to win the conference, and you'll be undefeated in that. And it was a good season for us. And I think it kind of set the groundwork for really how we do a lot of things now, you know.
I feel the same way, and I think, you know, our motto that season was thrive. And the reason we chose that is because we can choose to survive this COVID thing, or we can thrive in it. And we thought it was an opportunity to offer kids something that they needed now more than ever, and inclusion, because there was this massive separation. We felt like we were going to lose some kids if we didn't stay in touch. We filmed some videos and sent them out to them. We tried to stay in as much contact as we could. And I remember, I love what you said. We had to take care of now. We kept hope that there would be a season. I get text every day, Coach, are we going to play? Coach, and, you know, some schools suffered from kids leaving, going to different places and playing different states.
We had people calling us.
Yeah.
You know, hey, you guys are practicing? Yeah. If I move over there, can we get in? I'm like,
and I do know, and I won't mention, but there are some programs that COVID really set them back. Maybe not the coaches necessarily their fault, but just by a set of circumstances. Some teams that I think were on the rise got really punished by COVID. Partly because of school policies and partly because of the community or whatever. But we were able to keep everybody, you know, kind of in our huddle. And I think it made us stronger. I think you feel the same way. And I think we had a great spring with 6-0. And then you have these regrets. Like you said, oh my gosh, this could have been a really special playoff team. You know, we were really good. And we missed an opportunity. But hey, I still think we got to play 6 games. We could have played 0 games. So I am just thankful that they got that opportunity. And I know that it's cool to hear you say that, because I love to hear coaches' reflections on COVID, because it was so weird. There was no playbook. You couldn't go, oh, pandemic. Here's what you do.
This is what you should do on Monday.
We had to make it up.
Well, we had one thing to play for, a conference championship, and we, you know, out of all of them, we won that one emphatically, you know. And it's, you know, the coaches were amazing during that whole time. The kids bought into what we were doing, and we did not waste a single minute of opportunity that we had. And, you know, the seniors, they know they could have, you know, would have been, could have been, whatever. I just call them the COVID kids. Those COVID kids, they know. And they'll be able to talk about it for a long time, how good they could have been.
You know, I've had people tell me, well, you went 6-0. but there should be an asterisk by that. It's an undefeated season. I said, yeah, you're right, because these kids endured more. Almost an asterisk, like it doesn't quite count. I said, no, it counts even more.
Yeah.
What these kids went through with no fall season, going through the holidays, still unsure, deciding we're going to play in January or February. I mean, no, being a conference champ, like we were and you were, going 6-0 or whatever your record, having any success in that spring season. And it was weird playing in the spring, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And you'd already had some time there where we got to do some things in the fall.
Yeah.
And so then we went through that really awkward, we had the awkward basketball season.
Yeah.
Where parents only in some gyms and then nobody in some gyms. All the
Basketball with masks on.
Masks on. Well, masks. We covered a lot of chins from what I saw.
Yeah.
But then, and I remember the second it happened, my phone rang. Have you checked Twitter? I'm in the weight room. It's myself and Coach Webb, my offensive coordinator. He's at the other end, and I'm here, and I kneel down, and I'm on there's a bench like this, and I check my phone, and it says we're going to play in the spring, and I broke down. I lost it. I did.
Yeah.
Tears are coming down my face, and people think I'm crazy, really, until they know. And it's not about me. It has nothing to do with me. It's a little bit about the work that I put in to get us there, but it's more about the coaches and their desire to take this team and go do something special, and those kids' desire to play. And once we saw, hey, 6 games, I'm like, we're going to do everything we can to win all 6 of them.
And you and I have lots of seasons to come. I've had seasons before. Those kids, this is it.
That's it.
For those senior kids who, they're biding their time, they're going to start and to see that happen, it was heartbreaking to think, we got to play something. We got to have some kind of season. So
well, we opened, I believe, with West Frankfort at home. And the first play is like an 80-yard touchdown from Glover to Newcomb on Sluggo over the top. And, you turn around and kind of look and, it's an outdoor event. So everybody's, packed in and all that. You see a few masks around and whatnot. And you look around and see a couple moms. And, I mean, it put us back in. It put us into a normal thing for a minute. And really the season could have ended after that. And it would have been a similar feeling like what could have been. But luckily we got to play a few more. And it was, it was good.
And every single week, you didn't know if your team was going to get shut down.
Right, or the team you're going to play.
Or the team you're going to play.
Yeah.
And you could lose, so the unknown was constant.
Yeah.
But I love what you just said. I don't know that not only did our players need it, we needed it, our communities needed it. That the fact they had not gathered in an outdoor event and share in something positive, oh my gosh, it was more needed. And I tell you what, I've never appreciated coaching more, practice more, the fact that I'm on a bus going somewhere, who cares? We're playing a game. It was great. Yeah, appreciate you sharing. That was great. Quarterfinals this season. What a great season you had. Let's talk about that season a little bit. Expectations going in were pretty high. You thought you were going to have a good year?
Yeah, I figured we would have at least an opportunity to make a run. I mean, if you can always compare scores and results and that kind of thing. But I mean, last year we had a team that we didn't branch out much in the summer. We kind of stayed home and kept everything kind of close to the chest, and worked on ourselves and tried to get a feel for our kids. We had a lot of young kids, a lot of sophomores on that group that went. They ended up going 5-5. We get beat by Mount Carmel, and really we're in that game. I think it was a 1-score game at the end, and they go on to play in the state championship game. So you got the core of that team coming back. I think 21 out of 22 spots with returners coming back on them, offense and defense.
That's a big deal.
Still some young kids. Still some young kids. I mean, still a bunch of juniors. But we felt good. We liked our system. We liked where we ended the season, and so we felt good about just not only the way the playbook had changed and modified, but the way how well we fit it to the kids. And if you watch Benton play, if you pull the game from every year, it looks similar, about the same, but there's so many little differences that are adjusted and tweaked to our kids individually. So we felt pretty confident coming in. Had a really good summer, traveled around, saw some really good competition, and this team started hot, went through a spell in the middle with some injuries and some mistakes and all fixable things other than injuries you're gonna have to heal from. But then we finished the season very healthy, and a group of seniors that really rallied around each other. And the juniors bought into everything we were doing. We had some help from some sophomores, freshmen that joined the team, maybe late in their season, and were able to contribute even in this all the way to the quarterfinal game. So a nice chemistry and a really good environment, and you wish you had a few plays over in the quarterfinal game, but you know, it's a learning opportunity. We'll fix it and move forward. You know,
I got to watch your playoff games, all three of them, and well, those first two were just dominating performances. New Berlin takes it down first drive and scores, but from that point on, it's all been. Then Sullivan is a team that I played back in the 90s, in 95 and 97. And they're a program that's either here or here. It seems like they're a roller coaster program, and they were up. They were undefeated. Played at your place. They were never in the game. I text my brother at some point, and I said, I don't know that Sullivan has a first down. It's like the third quarter. Yeah. I don't know what they ended up with. Jeff Seaman told me, but it was a dominant performance of a team that came in at 10-0, and then you go to Monticello. Cully Walters, an amazing Hall of Fame coach, and boy, he had a wild one there. What a overtime game. We talked before we went on air about coulda, shoulda, but man, Coach, what a great season.
Well, thank you. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of from you to me, but I mean, I'd bounce almost all of that to we. You know, the staff that we have now is amazing, and you know, I find my places to interject, but it's really nice when you can roll some things out and ideas, and they're taken and expanded upon, and you know, the game plan comes together, and it's really a group effort, and those guys, they do an amazing job, and you know, the kids got behind everything we were doing, especially in that last 2/3 there of the season where things really got rolling, and really proud of them. And you know, we've got 12 seniors we're going to miss like crazy, and looks like about 17 to 20 juniors that are in preparation now for next year, and we'll see who plays, and maybe a few that won't, but excited about that group too. So
you know, I don't know most schools' coaching staffs. I know yours quite well, and we've worked together and did some stuff in the summer, and of course Dennis Trust and Jeff Seema coached with me, and of course Coach Johnson, and all your coaches, Stowers, and everybody. It is a great staff, and kudos to you. Congratulations to you, because part of our job is bringing the best we can, the best for our kids, and you certainly have done that. And I'm telling you this, it is, some coaches struggle bringing in the best because they're a little afraid it might take away from them, but I think we both believe that we got to bring in the best, the absolute best people we can, and put our ego aside sometimes and say, what can I learn from you? And you touched on something I think is important. Anytime you and I ever use the word I, we're representing our programs, and I've never won anything on my own.
Oh, no.
Never won a football game by myself on the sideline. Never, it is a we effort. I represent that coaching staff during COVID, during the good seasons, the challenging seasons. It was all a we thing, and you can't navigate those things by yourself. No. You can't. And you mentioned early in the season you had a bump mid-season or so, but I think good programs, they don't lose, they learn.
Right.
And evidently, you guys learned from that and finished strong, and that's great.
And a lot of that, a lot of discussion, film evaluation, discussions with kids, and putting our kids in the best spot to be successful and not make mistakes. And then, injuries played a role in that a little bit, but luckily we had plenty of depth to get through it and win a game or two in there in that stretch. And then once we did get healthy, I think it was, all hands on deck, and we were in good shape. I'll tell you, this is something that when you mention, surrounding yourself with the best possible people. I started out as a freshman coach. I coached with Jason Roper. I coached with one of the best football players ever play at Benton in Steve McCommons, whose son now is my defensive coordinator, and his grandson is a junior and an all-state linebacker.
Yeah.
So, extremely proud of him. It's that, and the in-laws and that whole family's kind of it seems like the first family of Benton football. There's, the minors and that whole crew, all their grandkids and everybody's coming through. But I coached with Todd Thomas, who's now head coach at Johnston City. And
doing pretty well.
So, it started there. In that same time period there when I coached some track and field, I was at a track meet, a co-ed track meet, and Martin and Alway are discussing something. And I interject myself, and at the time they probably didn't know who I was other than I was a kid from Benton. I was a lot younger then. And I just asked them, and this is me trying to be bold, I guess. Hey, I just got one question for you two. I don't want to waste your time, but I've never had the opportunity to talk to you two together. What is the number one key to your success? Like, what would you say to a young guy like me? Like,
it's a great question.
What do you think is the key to it? And I thought there was going to be some, crazy explanation. I think Al Way was just do what you do and be really good at it. You know, Al Martin said, you surround yourself with the best people you can. Yeah. And so those two things, I mean, we do what we do and we try to do as good as we can.
You took that advice.
We surround, that is one thing I do say. And I was asked, early on, culture and all those different kinds of things, but, where do you see what? And I always said I'd like to take credit for one thing, and that's always trying to surround myself with the best people.
Amen to that.
That goes for more than just the varsity coaching staff. I mean, that's everybody involved with the program. I mean, I have the best trainer in Southern Illinois. I'd argue with anyone. Sarge is unreal. The team, the girls that help film, our managers. I try to just surround myself with the best people I can. And that's led me to being in a room where I genuinely love to be in, whether it's post-practice, pre-game, post-game. It's fun, it's exciting, it's open, it's honest. We can talk and I can say what I need to say. They can say it back to me. I have people who don't tell me what I want to hear. Sometimes they do, but most of the time it's, hey, this is what you need to think about for the next 24 hours. And, those kind of things. And I just think we work really well together, and that's the one thing at some point I'd like to take credit for. I really worked really hard to put the best people in the room.
Well, that's why I brought it up, because I think you have, and I think that is a real strong suit of your coaching, is your ability to put the right people together, and it's what I learned a long time ago. I took over at a young age where I was 25 years old, and I had to surround myself with good people, and I saw the magic in that. But I saw my high school head coach when he took over Salem. He didn't just come in and take over. He brought people with him. He hired people. And as good as he was, he knew he couldn't do it by himself. None of us can. But I'm going to change courses a little bit, because you grew up a T formation guy. You coached in a T formation program. You played in it, you coached in it. And I know you still have that in there, but you're mainly kind of a spread team now. So tell me about that, juggling what I did and what I know was successful with operating in a spread offense, that transition.
So it was all I knew for a long, long time. 3 years of playing for Coach Roper, 9 years coaching with him. And this is one area where Coach Roper and I would have differed, and this is where I learned it's a thing I learned a little bit from him that helps now. Jeff was very much, this is how we do it, black and white, very regimented, and it led to him winning as many games as anyone in Benton High School history. Right. So can't argue that. But as a young kid, I felt a little bit of pressure to learn something new, do something different. So there was this unique opportunity. Well, Jeff would always have baseball going on in the summer and doing different things, and they always kind of overlapped with football camp at Illinois College or at McKendree or whatever, in team camp, and I would get to take all the rest of them and go to team camp, and I got to do what I want. So we're putting in some double wing stuff, and we're going some spread stuff, and we're running a few different things. I'm learning stuff while I'm there, and I'd come back and like, Jeff, we really need to look at this. This actually works with the tee, and he'd be like, it's not how we do it. And then I can remember we had a little play where we went double wing out of the tee. We took our normal drop from under center. We weren't about to go shotgun. But we actually swung a guy underneath for a shovel, and it just blocked up front like our counter play. And we ran that thing for a lot of yards in a couple of those seasons. So I was able to.
That's a shovel pass, by the way.
So I was able to kind of crack the shell just a little bit, on Coach Roper. And, through that little transition period there, I had an interest in other things and, other concepts and spreading the ball out and doing some stuff. And don't know that I would have done it. If I would have been the head coach after Jeff Roper, I think things would have been a lot different. Yeah. Because Jeremy Clodfelder came to town. And, as you know, obviously a wonderful football mind, X's and O's wise, spread guy. He had to take a bunch of people that were adamantly against everything he was trying to do and get them on board. And he did an amazing job. And the best thing he did for Benton football, now, and I told him this summer, he'll back me on this. I left the All-Star game this summer in Bloomington, and it just kind of struck me because some of the coaches I worked with from Cully Welter to, guys at Stanford Olympia and just all over the state, guys that won multiple state titles. And one thing that resonated with me was all of us are in similar situations, and talking to them about some of their staffs and the way they do things. And I realized, I have one of the best, I'll stand on it, I'll die on the hill. I have one of the best coaching staffs in the state. There's no doubt in my mind.
I agree.
And so I'm coming home and I'm thinking about them, and with guys like Derek Stowers and Brent Johnston and these spread guys who are installing these crazy concepts and teaching wide receiver footwork and studying for hours and hours and hours and learning the newest trends and all this, trying to get ahead, because you can't stay stale in the spread. They're gonna pick you off. So those guys all got their start under Coach Klopfeld. So I called him on the way home, and I'm like, I've got a really, really good staff, and I understand that things are what they are now, and they are what they were what they were when you left and all that, but I really got to thank you. Because your impact is still paying dividends today. So that transition, in those first few years, I had a lot to learn, but I'm learning from the guys I brought in,
Sure.
With me. And we still sometimes call plays like I would if we were in the T. We just do it with spread personnel,
Yeah.
and it's almost like a condensed version. If we spread 4 out and you spread 4 out, we're going to take the rest and mash it.
Sure.
And I'm as into the trick stuff and all that as I ever have been. So there's so many things you can do, and it's a three-dimensional game of chess. I really enjoy it, and I think our staff is really getting a good feel for what kind of our identity is. This year they really got it figured out and kind of dialed in there at the end. And now with some of our skilled kids are going to graduate, so we have to change that up a little bit. But it's fun. It's going to be a fun challenge. So
I think one of my big complaints about spread teams is that I feel like too many spread teams have no short yardage or red zone offense.
yes,
You do.
yes,
We did. We went to a kind of a double wing type philosophy in short yardage goal line. And our third down, fourth down and short, our red zone, our goal line offense was very high percentage scoring wise. And I attribute that just knowing that spread offense is great, but once that field condenses, the windows get smaller and smaller to throw. And I'm amazed how many college and pro teams can move the ball down the field, get the red zone, and they don't know how to score. They don't know how to run the ball. And I'm serious. I think that's a fault of the spread system. And maybe you have figured that out as I watched your teams. You know how to get the ball down the field, throwing the ball if you need to. But you also know how to get the ball in the end zone, in the red zone and goal line offense.
we won 2 games exclusively. One last season and one this past season. First one we went to West Frankfort. That was the 5-5 season, and they were good. They'd won some games, and we were expecting a really tight, knockdown, drag out game. They always give us fits, especially the way they play defense. And our starting quarterback had kind of violated one of my team rules, so he was going to be out for a little bit. Our backup quarterback knew the T very well, so we got in the T to start the game, drove right down their throat, scored a few times, and coach was like, let's just stay in it. So we got the starter back in, we stayed in it, and we won the game. This year, we played in the Hurricane Homecoming, we call it.
I remember that.
It rained. I've been in some rainy games. This was a hurricane, and it was blowing in sideways. It didn't matter how many layers you had on, it'd get through them and it'd roll down. And it was a wild, wild game. And I don't know that we broke the T formation one time the whole game.
Yeah.
Rushed for 350 yards, and when you need it, it's awful nice. And we just work on it a little bit every day.
Yeah.
And we have a pretty good system in it, and it doesn't work. It's not something you can, bounce in and out of midfield much. I think we change enough personnel that's hard, but it does give us a nice change of pace, and then it has led to some kind of middle ground stuff too.
Yeah, and I think a couple of things. First of all, inclement weather, you got something to fall back on, and that worked for us. I think the other thing is, I think it creates a toughness that sometimes the spread offense, you're spread out, there's not a lot of physical engagement. I'm not saying you can't be tough in the sprint, but I think when you run some tight formation stuff, and your kids got to practice against it, and your kids got to run it, and your kids got to down block and kick out. I think when you play a team that does that, you're much more prepared for it physically.
Oh, yeah.
To take that on. So I think there's added, but I'm just still surprised how many teams just don't even, pro teams who have all kinds of time, or college teams, and they have no answer. They don't have
They just spread more.
Yes.
They just get wider
They'll
and
go
more.
empty.
Yeah, empty.
And you're like,
mm-hmm.
okay, and they'll throw a fade route, which is a low percentage pass,
Yep.
and they'll throw 2 of them, and you're going, you're on the
field goal.
4-yard line. You know, it's like, it's maddening.
Well, for us, when we start that install process, the first thing is we shift gears. You know, hey, now you get to take a breath and communicate with each other.
Yeah.
And it's lined up in this huddle, but when you clap your hands, you're going up there to
Yeah.
try to dominate the guy across from you.
I've had offensive linemen who just get giddy when we called for the tight formation, so they love it. You know, we're almost done. Do you have a couple of non-negotiables? Like, I can handle, I can tolerate, I can negotiate, I can work with you as a player. But what are some non-negotiables for Justin Groves?
Well, we focus on, we only have one rule, so it kind of encompasses everything, but the one rule is we do the right thing. And so when you don't, we learn from it, make it a teachable moment, and then we move forward. Because people will, I think sometimes when a mistake is made, people linger on that too long. And I've looked at kids before dead in the face and said, I don't know why you're talking about it, I've already forgotten about it.
Yeah.
You're the one that has to learn and move forward. I'm already on to something else, you know. But I'm a real big believer in small things. I think if you take care of all the small things, the big things tend to take care of themselves. So,
amen to that.
Locker room has to be clean.
Yeah.
I walk through the locker room during practice, and there's things on the floor. We go back in as a team and clean the whole locker room back up, start to finish.
Right.
When we leave and close the door, there's nothing to do. It's ready for the next day. And I know that has nothing to do with winning a football game, but I think it has everything to do with winning a football game.
I absolutely agree with that. Yes.
So that's, you know, and that's something I've, over the course of 7 years, has, you know, become a lot easier to manage and a lot easier to train and easier to explain why. So, I mean, it's just part of kind of what we do now. It's just, we just do the right thing. We take care of the small things. You know, obviously when you're doing that, your attendance has to be good if you're going to do all the little things right. So, you know, nothing frustrates you more than the one day you're trying to install a new concept and one kid's not there or whatever. So our attendance has been really good the last couple of years. I mean, in fact, to a point where some kids that we would usually have to call and wake up and get there if we had to do something on a Saturday morning or whatever, they're the first one there because they know they're going to be in trouble if they're late. And, you know, some of that kind of stuff, you'd call it culture or whatever you would call it, but I think that's kind of where we've landed here. I don't have a lot of negotiables because it's just do the right thing.
Yeah. Amen. That covers a lot of things.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your family, because I mean, that's, you know, they're not absent from this. They are in it. Wife, kids.
Well, Brian is first-time deer hunter this last weekend. Killed a bigger deer than I've seen in the last 2 years.
Wow.
So yeah, she's you know, she's learning what it's like to be a coach's wife. I told her, just if you can make it through one good football season, I think we'll this will last a long time. And she got to experience that all the way through this year. And now we're into girls basketball. So to not skip over anyone, my oldest daughter is in college getting straight A's, which is a proud dad moment there. I told her
Where's she go to school?
Spring Lake. So and my youngest is a sophomore. My youngest daughter, sophomore, and playing girls basketball. She's a volleyball kid. You know, Ava, my oldest, she's developing my sense of humor, which is nice. I like that. You know, we can joke with each other and stuff. And Ella's just cut right off of the edge of me. I mean, she's you know, she's had that plus more. She's a spitting image. So Brody, my son, Brian's son, our son, he is one of the smartest individuals you'll ever meet. Wow. Questions a lot of things, a lot of whys. He has to understand things. Super smart. He is the kind of kid I'm hoping his interest in football is really growing, and I'm hoping he could be my analytic guy.
How old is he?
You know, he is. He'll turn 13 this weekend. I'm hoping he's like a next step for him. We got to get into huddle and start breaking down film and give me some analytics I can use. You know, because Dr. Boo's only got so many years left. I mean, he's been coaching for 100, so I don't know. And then Brinley, our daughter, she is. I'm going to say this, and you're going to say, "Oh, yeah, that's what you would say." I think she has a chance to go to the Olympics someday in gymnastics. She really, I mean, she's built like Simone Biles. She's 9 years old, and she can do aerials. And I mean, she's amazing. So
that's great.
They're a lot of fun, and they support me. And I always tell them, and it's one of those things. I'll see my kid before the game, where, hey, come out and give me a hug after the game. And when that happens, I mean, win or lose, the hugs from the kids and the wife after the game, that makes it all worth it. So, and they're all supportive, and we're just. just one thing at a time. Lots of schedules
Yeah.
to navigate.
Yeah.
So
It's a fun time, though. And
Oh,
I know
yeah.
it's busy, it's hectic, but it's the best of times. And so, just a shout out again to Coach Seaman, Coach Trust, who are I have a lot of history with, and I think a lot of them, and I feel an extension from myself to your program, not only through you for being on my staff, but also with those guys in the years we spent together. So it's a cool thing, and I vicariously sat there and watched your game with a lot of pride and excitement, and loved watching your team play, and hope to see a bunch of games next year. And I just want to tell you thank you for what you're doing, and not thanking you for the winning. I think thanking you for doing it the right way, for loving on kids, for building relationships, for seeing it beyond just the game of football to life. And the kids are blessed, man. Thank you for all you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to Coach Groves for an amazing insight into who he is, what he does, why he does it, how he does it. Thank Crown Brew again for letting us do this. Thanks Ross and Abby for all that they do, putting this together. Thank you, my guys at Adrenaline, and we wish you continued success. We'll be watching, and you keep watching, and let us know what you think, and we'll hope to see you next week. Thanks.